Open up the door, it's Dave!
Who?
Dave! D-A-V-E!
Dave?
Right, man, Dave.
Dave's not here.
Recently, I decided to take a trip up to the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. And so I wanted to take my Tesla and drive up there, and I was thinking about the fact that I wanted to talk to you about charging. I know a lot of you have questions about charging and how easy or hard it is, what it's like to charge, so I thought I'd take you along with me on the trip and tell you about it. Now, I had originally planned to do this video a little differently, but I didn't like the way it came out, so I'm kind of going back and re-editing what I filmed to fit a better narrative. So here's the story. Disney World is about 175 miles from my house, give or take. And the car that I have, my Model 3, has a 65 kilowatt hour battery, which gets about 200 miles on a full charge. So in theory, I should be able to make the trip up there without any issues. But the reality is 200 miles is under ideal conditions, sort of the perfect conditions, everything's right, you could drive 200 miles. I know that in reality, given the heat, driving conditions, the weather, how much I have in the car, how many people I have in the car, so the weight of the car and those kinds of things, all of those things can contribute to a lower overall number of miles that I can drive. So in reality, I'm probably going to see about a 15% less amount that I can travel in my car, given that all those conditions exist. So I can go probably 180 miles, 175 miles, in that range somewhere, right? That would be about where I'd get to. And I know that. So driving the 175 miles, that would put me at essentially zero when I got there. So I know that I have to charge on the way up. Now, if I had a larger capacity battery, this wouldn't be an issue. I could just go up there and charge when I left the house and then never charge again until I'm heading home. But unfortunately, I don't have that size battery in this Model 3, so I have to charge along the way. Now, when I first got this vehicle about 4 years ago, the charging stations were set up a little bit differently than they are today. At that time, Tesla had kind of set them up to be about 150 miles apart from each other. So in the South Florida corridor, depending on where you were driving, you might have to drive 150 miles to get to the next charger. And I can remember times when my car would tell me stay below 65 or 70 miles an hour to ensure that you get to the charging destination with enough charge. So that was a problem. But they've installed so many more chargers now and so many more high capacity chargers that that's not an issue anymore. I can just get in and drive, and really it's not a big deal, and I can always get to where I want to, and I don't have to worry about that staying below a speed limit or anything like that. It just works out for me. So anyway, got in the car, charged to 100% before I left, and I had to stop in Port St. Lucie along the way. That's about 80 miles from my house or so, give or take. So it's roughly halfway, a little less than halfway. Now, here's the great thing about the Teslas, and this is the one thing that really sells me on it. It's the fact that it has the integrated network of charging and tells you when to charge, where to charge, and how long to charge, and then preconditions the battery for you so that it's at the optimal state to charge. That on its own is enough to sell this car and make it worthwhile over the other cars that are out there. Look, the other cars will probably catch up at some point, but for now at least, they're not there. So you have to worry about charging and where you're going to go and how you're going to get there, and use a third-party app sometimes to be able to find the right charging destinations, or use something else where the car is not necessarily telling you anything other than you need to charge soon. So that's a huge advantage that Tesla has. So I went there, I pulled in, there's now a sign that says EV charging and tells you where to go, because I can remember the first couple times I'm charged, that I went to charge places, it would be like, where's the charging port? Where do I go? You had to drive around for a little bit to find it sometimes, but there it was. It pointed me right to it, went to it. There were also some FP&L chargers right next to it. Went ahead and charged. I was there for, 15 or 20 minutes, and then was on my way. And I got a notification from the car telling me that, hey, you're charged enough to continue your trip. I had gotten out of the car and was walking around, and in that 15 minutes it had charged up enough to go on my trip. I was pretty amazed by that. That was pretty remarkable. So here's the thing. When I looked at how much it told me it charged, I was like, it tells me that I'm going to get to the Magic Kingdom with about 11%. And I knew that I wanted to drive around a little bit when I was up there. I thought maybe I'd want to go to a different theme park. I knew that I'd have to drive out and go check into the hotel, and because I was staying somewhere other than right on property there. And I might want to drive around just a little bit to get dinner or whatever other things I was going to do. And I realized that I'd need a little more energy to be able to do some of those things. So I went ahead and boosted a little bit and charged it to over 90% when I was sitting there, because I figured why not go ahead and take advantage of these couple of extra minutes here to save myself some extra effort later. Now, there happened to be another supercharger just a block or so from the hotel I was staying at. So I went ahead and went there when I went to check in. The decision I made was I'm going to have to put some energy in the car, because obviously when I parked and I had 26% when I parked and I came back out and it was about 23, it was going to be time to charge it either tonight or tomorrow. And if I wanted to drive it a little bit tonight to go back to the parks or whatever, I'm going to need a little energy. So I'm going to go ahead and charge tonight and skip tomorrow morning. So I'm going to go ahead and put some charging in it now to take it up to about, maybe 70 or 80%. And that'll get me going through the day. And then I can decide how I'm going to head home tomorrow and figure out what I need to do to charge. Now, I did notice when I pulled in, when I started to charge, it told me it was a high capacity charger, because there's all the spaces were in use. This was the only space that was open when I pulled in. So a lot of them are in use. So it tells me that it'll only charge to 80% maximum, and then there's fees that apply if you wind up staying longer. So just something that happens once in a while, but thankfully there was a space open. If there hadn't, I might have just gone over and done the check-in first, then come back over here. I figured since it was on my way on the right side of the road, I'll just pull right in. That's, kind of an advantage I had to just staying in this particular hotel. But there's enough of superchargers around. I know that there's 4 I can think of. So as I said, there's a number of different chargers around. So you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the one I'm in right now. That's 6 that are right here in this area, in the immediate area. I was here when I started, and I just wound up at a hotel here, so no big deal. But I could have actually gone a little further south. I could have gone a little further west, and either way, I would have been fine with getting some charging to get energy if that's what I needed. So if I'd have just said I wanted to go to this destination, you put in your destination and it'll figure out where you need to go. So if I wanted to go different places, it would have just routed me to different places and said, oh, you need to charge here, or you need to do that. And that's it. That's what I love about the navigating in this car. It makes it so simple. Charge. Now I want to minimize the number of stops I have to make to charge. So here I am. I charged once on my way up here. It was plenty to get me there, to let me go off and enjoy most of my day. And then I come back and I park and I charge, and I charge up enough to be comfortable, and then I can go off and do whatever I want to do, and I don't have to worry about it again tomorrow morning either. So I can just go off and do whatever, and then I can, when I'm ready to head home, I just need to put in the destination. It'll do the whole thing for me. Now, it did tell me, because I didn't navigate to here, it did tell me, hey, by the way, if you navigated to there, we would have preconditioned your battery and you would have been much better off. It would have been a faster charge. Sure, that's true. But I'm not worried about that. It's not a big deal, because I'm not putting, I'm already at 40% at the time I've talked to you. It went up 20% already. So yeah, I wasn't really worried about it. I'm just going to be here for a short time and then I'm going to go on. So that's the way the charging works. But it's really, really easy. All you have to do is just look at the screen and figure out where you're going to go, and it'll tell you what to do with charging. In fact, so I was able to go back to the Magic Kingdom, go to the other parks I wanted to go to, had some fun and whatever. So I got up the next morning and my car still had something like 60% on it. So that was great. So I was able to go off, go get some breakfast, go to the Magic Kingdom again, have some more fun for the day. So I finished up my day here at the Magic Kingdom, and I'm gonna head home. So I'll put the coordinates in my car to get home and let it do the charging for me. I do know when I left the car this morning, I had about 50% or so charge left in it, so I don't know where it's gonna take me, how it's gonna route me home. I may wanna stop and pick up something for dinner on the way, so I may have one stop, but that's fine. Otherwise, it should be pretty easy to get there, and it'll tell me where to go. Now, the other thing is, in a parking lot of this size, it's sometimes really hard to find your car, as you know. So one of the cool features of the Tesla is that it actually gives you real-time coordinates of where your car is. So I can go into the app and I can see where my car is and find out exactly where I'm parked without having to wander through the parking lot or write down something or try to figure it out. So that's one of my favorite features all the way around. Funny that there were 2 more Teslas, one that looked just like mine, a couple of doors down from it, a couple of cars down, and then one that I had parked behind, and I remembered that I parked behind it this morning. So just kind of funny how that works, that, in a sea of cars, there's a few Teslas here. Now there's many more than when I first started driving my Tesla to Disney. I saw very few. Now I'm seeing them pretty regularly, and they seem to show up a lot throughout the parking lot. And then, toward the end of the day, when I was done and I was ready to go home, I was able to just start routing myself home. Now, here's the tricky part. I knew I needed to charge once before I actually left to start my trip, and then I'd have to stop once on the way home. So that was just gonna have to be the way it was. So I went ahead and set it up, put in the route, told it to take me home, and it routed me home and it told me where to charge. But then I was thinking about it for a minute. I'm like, I'd like to pick up something to eat on the way home. I'd like to make a quick stop on the way. So I added a stop to my route, and it changed the routing for me to take me to that stop and give me more efficient charging on the route I was on. Now, it turned out that this was a little more complicated only because there was construction going on that I didn't know about, and it took me an extra, 25 or 30 minutes just to drive through the construction to go the way I was going. But that was just an unfortunate side effect. So I wound up finding another charging station that it took me to, and I charged up there, and it took me a little while to charge, charged up there, and then continued my trip home. So it routed me out to a supercharger that's actually at a Wawa, which is kind of nice. Then I can just go in and get myself a drink, use the restroom, whatever I'm going to do while I'm waiting. So I'll go ahead and charge the car here a minute while I'm out here. Let's get that started a minute. Look at that, out of there. Okay. There we go. And we're started, so we can go into Wawa for a couple of minutes and just get a drink. Starting to charge. So it's going to take about 20 minutes or so to get charged, and then we'll go in, we'll get a little something. It's kind of nice when they're in a place like this. I got to 90%, so time to be on my way again. Go. Yep, just that easy. And I'm on my way. Here we go. And we're off. That last charging stop was at the same station in Port St. Lucie that I had charged up on the way up. And it was really, I think I was there because I had charged a little more when I was up in Orlando. I think I was there for like 10 minutes as a charge. So it was literally just enough time for me to go in and use the restroom before I got a message back telling me that my car was ready to continue my trip. So that's the way it worked. Now, there's a couple of things that I just wanted to mention briefly. And the first is that at these high volume chargers, where there's a lot of people that come in and out of them, they do set limits sometimes that you can't charge your car beyond 80%. They just want to limit you so that way you're in and out and you're on your way. Also, a lot of them charge an idle fee. If you're still plugged in and you're leaving your car there, they will charge you a fee for leaving your car there and not continuing to charge and not giving up the space. It's sort of a courtesy thing that you should do. So that was my trip. It was really very efficient, very easy. I had no concerns about range anxiety. Well, I will say that maybe I had a tiny bit of range anxiety right at the end. I was a little tired. I'm driving back and I'm looking at the how far I've got to go, and I'm watching the meter go down, and I'm thinking to myself, am I going to make it to the place I need to be? Am I going to make it all the way home? And of course I did. Fatigue tends to take over a little bit, and you start thinking about things. Am I going to make it? What am I going to do if I don't make it? But the car was efficient enough to know that I was going to make it, and I just had to trust in it in that case. So let's do the numbers. Let's take a look at how much it cost me and how long I spent charging. Let's pull up the Tesla receipt and see how much I spent. I see that there were 2 charges on day 1 when I was on the way up, and then 2 charges on day 2 when I was on the way back. So that would include all 4 charges that I made along the way. So you can see how they kind of break out that way. When I look at the total cost, I see that it was $35.36 for all of these charges. At home, before I left to get to 100%, it was about $5.85. So my total cost was about $41.21. So it gives me a pretty good idea of what it cost me. Now, if I compare that with what it would have cost me for a tank of gas, say it's a 15-gallon tank and you can go the full 300 miles or so, and $3 a gallon, that would be a little bit more than the $41.21. And of course, you need a little more gas to make the full round trip. In terms of the time that it took me to actually do the charging, I had 4 stops. It was a 25-minute stop on the way up, then a 20-minute stop when I was at the hotel, then 25 minutes when I was at the Wawa, and then about 10 minutes at the last stop. So there you go. It was about 80 minutes.
What's your point, David?